The bridge of the Zealer Dominion flagship floated in silence above the blue and white planet below. Through the vast observation window, Earth turned slowly in the darkness, its oceans glittering beneath drifting clouds like liquid sapphire. Admiral Kareth stood alone, his four-clawed hands clasped behind his back. His scaled skin shimmered faintly under the ship's dim lights, a reptilian bronze hue that reflected his authority. For decades, the Zealer had studied this world from orbit, a planet filled with noise, war, and chaos. A primitive world. And yet, something about it always unsettled him. Behind him, the doors slid open with a faint hiss. The sound was small, but Kareth straightened instantly. He had been waiting for this moment for years. The figure who entered looked human. Average height, dark hair, and pale skin that looked almost too soft for a warrior. He wore simple earth clothes, a shirt and rough blue trousers, and carried himself with casual confidence. But Kareth knew this was no human. Agent Ryan, the Zealer spy who had lived among the humans for 23 long years. Agent Ryan, Kareth said, his voice cold yet respectful. Welcome home. The crew has been dismissed, so we may speak freely. Ryan smiled, though his eyes looked tired. It's strange, Admiral, he said in a perfect human accent. After all this time, it almost feels wrong to be back among my own people. Kareth gestured toward the central command chair. Sit. You've been deep undercover for longer than any operative in Dominion history. The Council will want your full report before we proceed. Ryan walked forward with a human's uneven stride. The Admiral studied him with fascination. The way his shoulders moved, the way his 5 fingers flexed unconsciously, how his breathing came shallow and frequent. So different from the disciplined calm of the Zealer. How was it? Kareth asked, living as one of them. Ryan's expression twisted, not quite a smile, not quite a grimace. Horrible, he said. Everything about them feels wrong. The air, the noise, the constant touching. And these, he raised his hand, spreading all 5 fingers, these useless appendages. I never got used to them. Kareth's golden eyes flickered with amusement. You adapted well enough to fool an entire species. Yes, but at what cost? Ryan leaned back in the chair. Do you know what it's like to eat their food, Admiral? Grease, sugar, chemicals, they call it comfort food. I call it torture. And their obsession with cleanliness, they wash everything. Twice. Sometimes 3 times. It's madness. Kareth chuckled softly, an odd, rasping sound that echoed in his throat. You endured it for the mission, and for that, the Dominion honors you. Ryan's gaze drifted toward the glowing planet. It's strange, he murmured. They fight each other endlessly. Kill over borders, beliefs, even color. Yet somehow they survive. Always on the edge of destroying themselves, but never quite falling off. The Admiral turned to face the window again, his reflection glimmering beside Ryan's. That's what makes them dangerous, he said quietly. Instincts without control, power without wisdom. Silence stretched between them for a long moment, filled only by the soft hum of the ship's engines. Finally, Kareth spoke again. You've completed your study of their weapons? Yes, Ryan replied, his tone shifting to something colder, professional. Their technology is crude, chemical propellants, metal projectiles, explosive compounds. They rely on force and fire rather than logic and precision. Kareth nodded slowly. Primitive indeed. But, Ryan hesitated. There's something about them that's different. They create weapons not just to fight enemies, but to overcome fear. Every invention they make, guns, rockets, even their nuclear bombs, is born from fear of extinction. And yet, that same fear keeps them alive. The Admiral frowned. You sound almost impressed. Perhaps I am, Ryan admitted softly. For all their chaos, they endure. Kareth's claws tapped against the console. Endurance is irrelevant. The Council has decided. If humans ever reach the stars, they will claim the same worlds we need for survival. We cannot allow that. Ryan looked up sharply. You mean? Yes, Kareth said. Operation Veil begins soon. The fleet will reveal itself in orbit. Humanity will see us, and in their panic, they will destroy themselves. Their history shows what happens when they're afraid. For a moment, Ryan said nothing. His human eyes that had seen Earth's sunrises, its rain, its laughter, met the Admiral's unblinking golden stare. I see, he whispered. Your loyalty will not be forgotten, Kareth said. You've done well, Agent. Once Earth is gone, the Council will reward you beyond measure. Ryan forced a faint smile. Of course, Admiral. I only wish to serve. But as Kareth turned away, Ryan's hand clenched slightly. His gaze lingered on the glowing world below, that fragile sphere of oceans and clouds, and something flickered in his expression. Not hatred, not pride, something far more dangerous. Regret. And deep beneath that, a secret the Admiral would soon wish he'd never ignored. Admiral Kareth sat once more in his command chair, the light from Earth's reflection rippling across the metallic walls of the bridge. The planet looked calm, too calm, for a species famous for chaos. Let's begin, Kareth said at last, his voice low and deliberate. Agent Ryan, you spent over 2 decades among them. Tell me everything. Start with their weapons. Ryan nodded and reached into a small pouch at his belt, pulling out a thin human tablet. Scratched, old, but still working. The Admiral's golden eyes narrowed. Human technology? Ryan gave a small grin. Outdated by our standards, but it does the job. I collected everything they ever fired, launched, or exploded. He tapped the screen, and several images appeared above it. Crude guns, heavy tanks, missiles, submarines slicing through dark water. They use chemical propellants, Ryan began. Powder burns, creates gas, pushes metal bullets at terrifying speed. Simple physics, brutal efficiency. Their soldiers call them rifles or cannons. The designs are primitive, but they never stop improving them. Kareth tilted his head slightly. And yet, against our armor, such weapons are meaningless. Yes, Ryan said slowly. Against us, maybe. But against each other, they've mastered destruction. The Admiral's eyes gleamed. Continue. Ryan swiped again. New images appeared. Mushroom clouds rising from deserts and oceans. Then there are these. Nuclear weapons. They split atoms and unleash suns inside their skies. They've had them for almost a century. They've nearly destroyed themselves with them. More than once. Almost, Kareth echoed. But not quite. Exactly, Ryan replied. That's what makes them dangerous, Admiral. They always stop one breath before the end. It's like they want to test how close they can get to extinction without crossing the line. Kareth gave a faint rasp of laughter. Curiosity as a survival instinct. How human. The Admiral moved closer to the holographic display, tracing a claw across the image of Earth's continents. And their missile capabilities? Global, Ryan answered. They can strike any point on the planet within an hour. Some of their systems can even leave the atmosphere. They use them as deterrents, fear-controlling fear. Kareth studied the data silently, his mind racing. Impressive for primitives. But their weapons cannot pierce our shields. Even 1,000 of their nuclear warheads would burn harmlessly against our hulls. Ryan hesitated, eyes flicking toward the window again. Maybe so, he said quietly. But they have something else, something that isn't in any file. The Admiral's gaze sharpened. Explain. Ryan closed the tablet and exhaled slowly. Humans hide things, Admiral. They bury their real strength under laughter, under noise, under chaos. The more you watch them, the less you understand them. One day, they build machines to kill each other. The next, they build machines to explore the stars. Sometimes, both at once. Kareth frowned. You sound uncertain. Uncertain, Ryan repeated with a faint, strange smile. No, just aware. They're unpredictable. That's what makes them terrifying. For a moment, the Admiral said nothing. The hum of the ship filled the air, steady and confident, a sound that had always meant control. But for the first time, Kareth felt a small shadow of doubt. He brushed it away. It doesn't matter. The Council's decision is made. Humanity cannot be allowed to join the stars. We will end their line before it begins. Ryan's eyes hardened, though his face remained calm. So it's extermination then? Kareth's tone turned to cold steel. Not extermination. Prevention. They will destroy themselves, as they always have. We will simply give them encouragement. Ryan looked down at the Earth again, his reflection floating beside the Admiral's. His human features looked unreadable, yet his voice carried something new, something distant. I spent 23 years learning their languages, their stories, their songs, he said softly. They dream about the stars every night. You think they'll let anyone take that from them? Kareth's jaw tightened. They won't have a choice. Ryan looked back at him, the faintest hint of a smile ghosting across his face. Maybe that's what they said about us. once. The words hung in the air, strange and heavy. The Admiral ignored them. He turned toward the control panel, opening a secure channel to the fleet below. "Prepare all ships," he ordered. "Within the next cycle, we decloak above the human capital zones. Let them see their gods arrive." Ryan stood silently behind him, the reflection of Earth still burning in his eyes. Inside him, the part that once belonged to the Zealer had gone silent. The part that had learned to laugh, to eat, to love like a human. That part was wide awake. And for the first time in his life, Agent Ryan knew which side he was truly on. The command bridge of the Zealer Dominion flagship buzzed with energy. The quiet hum of systems gave way to hurried motion as officers returned to their stations. Glowing symbols danced across the walls, displaying Earth's rotation, atmosphere, and heat signatures. Admiral Kareth stood at the center, calm but focused, his golden eyes reflecting the holographic light. "Initiate Operation Veil," he commanded. "Fleet-wide synchronization, stealth disengage on my signal." "Yes, Admiral," replied the helmsman, a younger Zealer whose scales shimmered silver blue. Ryan stood near the viewport, arms folded. The blue planet filled the glass like a jewel. His human disguise still intact, he looked almost fragile among the towering reptilian crew. No one suspected that the agent they respected had begun to doubt the mission. "All ships report readiness," came the tactical officer's voice. "Weapons charged, shields at full capacity." Kareth nodded. "Then let them see us." The order echoed through the fleet. And in a single synchronized pulse, 40 Zealer warships shimmered into visibility above Earth's atmosphere. For a heartbeat, the void was silent. Then the stars themselves seemed to flare, as massive metallic hulls emerged from cloaked space, like dark moons suddenly born around the planet. Each ship cast a faint, rippling distortion, their shields glowing faintly gold. Down below, Earth reacted instantly. "Admiral," said the communications officer, tension clear in his tone. "Human satellites are transmitting at full power, radar, microwaves, even primitive radio bands. They've seen us." Kareth smiled faintly. "As planned. Let them panic." Ryan's jaw tightened. He could almost imagine what it looked like down there. Crowds staring at the sky, governments scrambling, military bases erupting with alarms. He'd seen their fear before. He knew it well. "They're sending transmissions," the comms officer continued. "Languages vary: English, Mandarin, Russian, Arabic. All asking who we are and what we want." "Ignore them," Kareth said coldly. "Let their fear do the talking." Minutes passed. The bridge lights dimmed as the fleet entered full defense mode. The air felt heavy, a silence before the storm. Then the sensor officer spoke, her voice sharp and nervous. "Multiple launches detected. Ground-based silos across 3 continents. Dozens of objects ascending at high velocity. Trajectories match nuclear payloads." Ryan's heart sank. He didn't need translation. Humanity had just fired everything they had. 70 confirmed missiles, the officer continued. "Targets appear to be our forward line. Impact in 11 minutes. Kareth's tail flicked once, the Zealer sign of satisfaction. "Excellent. They behave exactly as expected. Keep shields at maximum. Document everything for the Council's report." The bridge filled with tense activity. Commanders called out updates. Power levels rose. The glow of the shield generators deepened to amber. Ryan stayed silent, his eyes on the incoming swarm of missiles displayed on the main screen. He recognized their shape, their speed, their patterns, things he'd seen countless times on human military channels. But something was different. Too many, too precise, and too calm. He'd studied humans long enough to know they didn't all panic the same way. When they truly feared extinction, their chaos turned sharp. Organized. Calculated. "Admiral," Ryan said softly, "don't underestimate them. Humans don't launch this many weapons unless they have a plan." Kareth gave him a dismissive glance. "You lived among them too long, Agent. Their instinct is panic, not strategy. Watch and learn." The countdown ticked lower. 10 minutes. 7. 5. The bridge lights dimmed further as the fleet braced for impact. The crew stood tall, confident behind layers of shielded energy, untouchable gods watching the tantrum of a dying species. 2 minutes to impact, said the sensor officer. Kareth folded his hands behind his back. Prepare to record visual data. Outside the viewport, Streaks of fire pierced the atmosphere. Dozens of bright trails arced upward like furious comets, converging toward the fleet. The sight was breathtaking, terrible, and strangely beautiful. 30 seconds, whispered someone. Ryan closed his eyes. He could almost hear the voices below, the prayers, the last calls, the silence before the fire. Then came the impact. The first missile struck the leading warship's shield, a blinding flash, a ripple of energy, and then nothing. No explosion, no radiation, just silence. Report, Kareth demanded. Admiral, the officer said in confusion, no detonations detected. Impact confirmed, but there was no nuclear discharge. One by one, more missiles struck. Dozens, then hundreds. None of them exploded. Laughter broke out across the bridge, the nervous kind that comes after fear. Their weapons failed, someone said. They fired duds. Even Kareth smiled, the edge of arrogance returning. Pitiful creatures. They couldn't even destroy themselves properly. But Ryan wasn't laughing. He moved closer to the viewport. On the fleet's shimmering golden shields, he saw something strange. Faint black dots clinging to the energy barrier like flecks of ash. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. And they weren't fading. Admiral, Ryan said quietly, his voice tight. Zoom in on the shield surface. Kareth frowned but nodded. The tactical display magnified the area. The bridge fell silent. Tiny black spheres, each perfectly round, were sticking to the shield's surface. They didn't glow, didn't move, just clung there, motionless, absorbing all light. What are those? Whispered the sensor officer. Kareth's smile vanished. That, he said slowly, was not in your report. Ryan stared at the spreading darkness on the screens, black spots multiplying like a disease. His heart pounded. He didn't need to say it aloud. Whatever humans had launched, it wasn't what anyone expected. The bridge lights flickered. The laughter stopped. Every officer turned toward the massive viewport, where the planet hung below like a calm blue eye, and around it, the Zealer fleet began to darken. The black spheres clinging to their golden shields weren't fading. They were spreading. At first, they looked harmless, specks of dust against energy fields. But then the tactical sensors began to distort, the readings glitching and collapsing. Admiral, said the sensor officer, voice trembling. We're losing data from the upper quadrant. The scanners, they're blind. Admiral Kareth stepped closer, his golden eyes narrowing. Blind? Impossible. Our sensors cover every wavelength. They did, she said. Now they're being absorbed. The spheres are eating the signals, radar, thermal, even visual light. The air grew heavier. The bridge crew shifted uneasily. Ryan stared at the screen. The small dots had turned into thousands, merging into clusters that pulsed faintly, like living things. The golden glow of the shield was slowly disappearing behind the growing darkness. Admiral, Ryan said quietly, you need to deactivate shields and eject the foreign matter. Kareth cut him off. We cannot deactivate shields during a nuclear barrage. With respect, sir, Ryan pressed. This isn't a nuclear barrage. The Admiral turned sharply, his tail snapping against the deck. Enough, Agent. You are not in command here. More alerts flared across the consoles. Communication links began to fail one by one. The fleet chatter on the command channel turned to static. Admiral, we've lost visuals on the Nerik and Falneri, reported the comms officer. They're still transmitting status, but no image feed. The spheres have covered their external sensors completely. Kareth's claws dug into the armrest. Patch me through to the fleet. The speakers crackled, voices filled with confusion and fear. Can't see the planet anymore. Our cameras are black. It's spreading across the hull. Then, one by one, the voices vanished. Signal lost, whispered the comms officer. For a moment, the only sound was the low hum of the engines and the faint heartbeat-like pulse of the shields. Ryan moved toward the Admiral slowly. You're not dealing with a failure, sir. This was intentional. Humans designed these. Kareth turned on him. You expect me to believe that those primitives built a weapon that defies physics? Ryan met his gaze. They didn't defy it. They used it. The Admiral hesitated. The words carried the weight of experience, the voice of someone who had seen human invention up close. They hide their real weapons, Ryan continued. They build distractions, myths, and jokes around them, so that when the real ones appear, no one recognizes them until it's too late. Kareth's jaw tightened. I won't listen to this nonsense. Prepare engines for warp retreat. We'll leave orbit and regroup beyond lunar shadow. The helmsman obeyed, talons moving over the glowing console. Then froze. Admiral, the navigation system refuses to initiate warp. Kareth's head snapped toward him. Explain. The system detects external mass interference, the helmsman said, reading the warnings. The spheres are attached to the shield envelope. If we jump, their field signatures could interact with the warp field. Could, Kareth demanded. Sir, the computer predicts catastrophic collapse of the drive core. If we jump now, we might tear ourselves apart. The Admiral's heart pounded. Trapped. His fleet, 40 ships, thousands of warriors, trapped above a planet of primitives. He forced calm into his voice. Then deactivate shields. Shake them off. The sensor officer turned pale. We can't, Admiral. They're feeding off the shield energy. If we drop the field, we'll expose the hull, and we don't know what they'll do. Ryan stepped forward. They won't wait long to show you. The Admiral glared at him. And how do you know that? Ryan's answer was quiet. Because I know them. Before Kareth could respond, the comms console flickered to life. Admiral, said the officer in disbelief. Incoming transmission. From Earth. Every frequency. Audio and visual. Kareth stared at the screen. Put it through. The viewport shimmered, and a human face appeared. An older man in uniform, gray hair, eyes calm and steady. He spoke in English, but the ship's translator rendered every word into the Zealer tongue. To the ships orbiting our world, the man said, his voice calm but cold. You came here expecting fear, expecting surrender, but we've been expecting you. No one moved. Every Zealer on the bridge stood frozen, the weight of the human's gaze pressing through the air. Those black spheres covering your shields, the man continued, are not bombs, yet. Each one contains compressed matter and reactive plasma. They're waiting. If you try to flee, lower shields, or fire on us, they will activate. The result will not be pretty. Kareth's claws dug into his chair. He's bluffing, he muttered. The human leaned closer, as if he heard him through the void. You have 1 hour to make a choice. Stay where you are and suffocate when your power runs dry, or land peacefully and surrender. Try anything else, and you'll discover why humans stopped testing weapons in open air a long time ago. The transmission cut to black. Silence filled the bridge once more, deeper and heavier than before. Ryan exhaled slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. Admiral, now you see why I called them unpredictable. Kareth didn't answer. His golden eyes stared into the void, where Earth hung quietly beneath them, not trembling, not helpless. Just waiting. The bridge of the Zealer Dominion flagship was silent. No one dared to speak. The crew stood frozen, the image of the human commander's face still lingering in their minds. Calm, confident, terrifying. Admiral Kareth's claws tapped the metal of his armrest. The rhythm was sharp, steady, the sound of someone forcing control. Finally, he broke the silence. Status report. The sensor officer swallowed hard. Shields at full strength, sir. But the black spheres are drawing power. Our energy output is increasing to maintain integrity. How much? 30% more than usual. It's rising every minute. Kareth's golden eyes narrowed. Meaning, the longer we wait, the faster we die. No one answered. They didn't need to. Communications, Kareth said, his voice low. Open a channel to the fleet. Static answered him. The comms officer worked quickly, hands trembling over the glowing controls. Sir, interference is worsening. The spheres are blocking inter-ship transmissions. Only fragments are getting through. Fragments? The officer nodded, voice shaking. Most ships report the same condition. Total visual blackout. Shields compromised. Navigation locked. They're all waiting for your orders. Kareth's gaze drifted toward the planet below. The blue marble spun quietly, innocent, almost mocking. He remembered when he first studied Earth, its fragile atmosphere, its wars, its endless noise. A world that should have been easy to control. And now, it held 40 warships hostage without firing a single laser. He clenched his jaw. How could this happen, he muttered. We studied them for decades. We knew everything. Ryan, standing near the viewport, spoke softly. You thought you did. The Admiral turned sharply. You knew, he accused. You knew they had something like this. Ryan didn't flinch. No, Admiral. I didn't know what they built. but I knew what they were capable of. Explain yourself. Ryan looked at him, eyes reflecting the faint light of the dying shields. When you live among humans long enough, you learn one thing. They never stop preparing for the worst. Even when they laugh, when they eat, when they dream, they plan. They build their nightmares into tools. The Admiral stepped closer, his voice rising. So they trapped us with fear? Ryan shook his head slowly. No, Admiral. With hope. They hoped they'd never need to use this. But they built it anyway, because they've learned. The universe doesn't care about their hope. So they made sure to survive it. The words sank deep into the air like weights. The helmsman interrupted, voice trembling. Sir, our reactors are overheating. Power draw is unstable. At this rate, we'll lose shield integrity within 3 hours. Kareth stared at the display. The ship's energy signature pulsed erratically, like a dying heartbeat. Could we shut down shields for even a second? No, Admiral, replied the engineer over the comm. The spheres are binding at a molecular level. If shields drop, we don't know what happens. My guess? They detonate. Kareth's breath came heavy through his gills. He was cornered, surrounded not by enemies, but by consequences. Communications officer, he said after a long pause. Send a transmission to Earth. The officer hesitated. What should I say? Kareth closed his eyes. The words hurt. Tell them, we request to talk. Before the officer could move, a faint click echoed behind the Admiral, the unmistakable sound of a human firearm being readied. The room froze. Ryan stood there, calm, holding a small black pistol. Its primitive design looked almost ridiculous compared to the sleek Zealer technology around him. Yet no one dared move. Agent Ryan, Kareth said slowly. Explain yourself. Ryan's voice was quiet. I need you alive, Admiral. If someone panics and shoots, these ships die faster. So let's keep things calm. You're betraying your own species. Ryan's eyes flicked toward Earth. Am I? He asked softly. I was born Zealer, yes. But I lived as human. I saw what they fight for, family, children, ideas. I saw them build beauty out of pain. You call them primitives. I call them unstoppable. Unstoppable. Kareth spat. They live on a single world, still burning coal like insects. Ryan's smile was faint, almost sad. Maybe. But look where they've brought you. The most advanced species in this sector, trapped in orbit, afraid to breathe too hard. The Admiral's claws tightened on the armrest. You doomed your people for them. Ryan's voice softened, carrying something almost human, regret. No, Admiral. You doomed us the moment you called them lesser. The silence that followed was unbearable. Finally, Kareth lowered his head slightly, his tone almost a whisper. What do they want from us? Ryan holstered the gun, his voice steady now. They don't want to destroy you. They want you to understand. They've lived their entire existence waiting for someone stronger to come and take everything from them. And now that day has come, and they're proving strength doesn't come from claws or ships. It comes from never giving up. Kareth said nothing. His golden eyes stared at the faint shimmer of black outside the viewport. Each sphere pulsed softly, like thousands of quiet heartbeats. For the first time in his long life, the Admiral didn't feel like a conqueror. He felt small, like a shadow standing before a storm he could never stop. The countdown clock glowed red above the bridge. 52 minutes and 19 seconds. 52 minutes until the human's deadline expired. Admiral Kareth sat still in his command chair, staring at the fading shimmer of his ship's shields. The once golden light was now dull and flickering, overrun with black shapes that pulsed like tiny dark suns. Power core at 80% capacity, reported the engineer. Consumption increasing fast. At this rate, we'll reach overload before the hour ends. Kareth's voice came out quiet, almost hollow. If we shut down shields, the spheres detonate. If we keep them up, we melt from the inside. Yes, sir, the officer replied. The Admiral turned to the viewport again. Earth hung silent and bright below, not a battlefield, not a victim, just a patient, waiting world. He could feel it watching him. Ryan stood nearby, hands behind his back, the human pistol still holstered but visible. His human face looked calm, almost peaceful, a strange contrast to the tension around them. Kareth spoke without turning. You've doomed us all, Agent. Do you understand that? Ryan's answer came softly. No, Admiral. I've given you a way to live. The Admiral's tail flicked once, his species' sign of restrained rage. Life in chains is not life. Neither is extinction, Ryan replied. The bridge crew shifted nervously. None of them dared speak. The only sounds were the distant hum of energy flow and the faint crackle of failing sensors. Suddenly, the communications officer straightened. Incoming transmission, again from Earth. Audio only. Kareth gestured sharply. Play it. A voice filled the room. Calm, male, and human. To the ships in orbit. You've had time to think. You know your choices. If you surrender, we'll help you land safely. If you fight or run, you'll die. We don't bluff. Choose. The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent again, but the weight of those few words pressed down on everyone like gravity. Kareth turned toward Ryan slowly. They give orders as if we are children. Because you underestimated them, Ryan said. You thought fear would make them weak. But fear is what makes humans unstoppable. The Admiral rose from his chair, his tall frame looming over the smaller figure. You speak as if you admire them. I do, Ryan admitted. I tried not to. I wanted to hate them. But after 23 years, I realized something. They don't conquer worlds because they need to. They conquer fear because they must. Kareth's golden eyes blazed. You became one of them. Ryan met his gaze. Maybe that's not a bad thing. The helmsman interrupted, his voice breaking the silence. Admiral, external readings just changed. The spheres, they're vibrating. Kareth spun toward the display. Thousands of tiny black orbs shimmered in perfect rhythm, pulsing faster, like a heartbeat counting down. Are they activating? I don't know, sir. But they're reacting to our energy levels. The more power we feed the shields, the more unstable they get. Ryan stepped closer. They're warning you. Stop fighting. Enough. Kareth roared, slamming a clawed hand against the console. Sparks scattered. I am the Admiral of the Dominion. I will not surrender to monkeys. The outburst silenced the bridge. No one moved. Then Ryan's voice broke through. Quiet, steady, and sharper than any weapon. They're not monkeys, he said. They're the reason you're still breathing. Kareth froze. Ryan continued, his voice rising. They could have detonated those spheres the moment you decloaked. They didn't. They gave you a choice. You came here planning to wipe out 8 billion lives, and they still gave you a way out. The Admiral's breathing grew heavy. He looked around the bridge, his officers avoiding his eyes, the ship trembling around them, the planet below unmoved. For the first time in his career, he didn't feel in control. He felt judged. Admiral, the comms officer whispered. 3 ships just reported core temperature spikes. They're asking for permission to lower power output. Kareth didn't answer. His mind raced, his honor against survival, his pride against reality. Ryan took a step forward. You said life in chains isn't life. Maybe you're right. But if you die here today, no one remembers your name. If you live, maybe you'll learn why they fought so hard to keep theirs. The Admiral stared at him. In those human eyes, he saw no hatred, no mockery, just truth. He turned slowly to his crew. All ships, he said finally, voice low but steady. Hold current position. Cut non-essential systems. Maintain shields at minimum power. Prepare for negotiation. No one spoke. For a long moment, the only sound was the faint hum of energy winding down, a sigh of surrender. Then, faintly, the communications officer said, Transmission ready, sir. Kareth nodded. His claws trembled slightly as he spoke. Send to Earth. Tell them, we wish to talk. As the signal was sent, Ryan looked out the viewport again. Earth gleamed brighter now, its clouds silver in the sunlight. He whispered, almost to himself, they never wanted war. They only wanted to be seen. Behind him, the countdown stopped flashing red, replaced by a soft, green glow. The humans had accepted their answer. When the Zealer Dominion ships finally descended, the skies of Earth burned gold. They came down slowly, wounded giants wrapped in shimmering shields, their hulls streaked with the marks of exhaustion. Cities across the planet watched in stunned silence as 40 alien warships drifted through the clouds like fallen suns. For the first time in their long history, the Zealer fleet came not as conquerors, but as guests. Admiral Kareth stood on the command deck as the clouds parted below. He could see oceans, mountains, and lines of light that stretched across continents. The human world was alive, raw, imperfect, and breathtaking. Landing coordinates confirmed, said the helmsman quietly. Shields remained stable at low power. Kareth nodded, his voice barely above a whisper. Proceed. The ships touched down across remote areas, deserts, tundras, empty plains. No weapons fired. No resistance came. Only silence. Then, as if the planet itself exhaled, the black spheres began to detach from the shields. One by one, they lifted, hovered, and disintegrated into harmless dust. The threat was gone. The humans had kept their word. Kareth exhaled deeply, his chest heavy. He turned to Ryan. So this is how it ends. The great Dominion kneeling before primitives. Ryan shook his head. No, Admiral. This is how it begins. Kareth frowned. Begins. You thought strength was about control, Ryan said. But humans taught you something better, survival through mercy. Power isn't about who fires first. It's about who stops when they could destroy everything. The Admiral looked at him for a long time, then turned back to the viewport. On the ground below, human soldiers were approaching their landing site, cautious but disciplined. No fear, no chaos. Just purpose. He found himself admiring it. Hours later, the surrender was official. The humans didn't celebrate. There were no parades or fireworks, no shouts of victory. They simply worked, scanning the ships, disabling weapons, guiding the Zealer crews to temporary facilities. It wasn't triumph. It was order. And that frightened Kareth more than any weapon ever could. Years later, the war that never happened became history. The humans called it the Silent Orbit Incident. 18,000 Zealer prisoners lived among them, not in chains, but in observation. Over time, many learned human languages. Some taught, some studied, and some, like Kareth, began to understand what Ryan had meant. He saw how humans turned every defeat into fuel, how they dismantled his ships and rebuilt them, faster, smarter, stronger, how they treated their enemies not as trophies, but as teachers. It took decades, but when the first human-built warp ship launched into the stars, its engines hummed with Zealer technology, improved, refined, perfected. Humanity had taken the tools of its would-be conquerors and turned them into the foundation of a new era. And when the Galactic Council finally invited Earth to join, no one dared object. Even the Zealer delegation, older, humbler, changed, watched in quiet respect. The final meeting. On a quiet night aboard the rebuilt flagship Eclipsera, Admiral Kareth, older now, his scales duller, stood alone by the viewport once again. Earth still turned beneath him. But now it was different, surrounded by human-built stations, trade vessels, and defense satellites that shimmered like constellations. He heard footsteps behind him. Ryan entered, his human form long gone, but his eyes still the same. It's been a long time, Ryan said softly. Kareth gave a faint nod. I should have executed you when I had the chance. You tried, Ryan replied with a faint smile. But humans have a habit of changing people instead of killing them. They stood in silence, watching the planet. The same world they once called primitive now stood as a leader among stars. Kareth finally spoke. You were right, Agent. They didn't conquer us. They'd absorbed us. Ryan turned to him. That's what they do, Admiral. They take fear and turn it into strength. They take enemies and turn them into allies. And when the universe laughs at them, they just keep going. Kareth's golden eyes softened. You admire them. I lived among them, Ryan said. And now I think we all do, in one way or another. For a moment, neither spoke. The ship hummed quietly around them, a fusion of two civilizations that once tried to destroy each other. Kareth looked at the blue planet below, his voice a whisper. I wanted to own that world. Instead, it owns me. Ryan smiled faintly. Welcome to humanity, Admiral. Outside the viewport, the sun rose over Earth. Lights spilling across the clouds, bright and endless. And for the first time in his long, war-filled life, Admiral Kareth bowed his head, not in defeat, but in understanding.